Hey folks, back to the finishing of the OMC in mahogany and Swiss spruce with the Ilva / Silvertip finishing schedule. Where we left you last time was we had done some touch-up. We did some touch-up around the body, which were glue spots. I just want to elaborate a little bit on that. What a glue spot is, it's an area on mahogany or wood where you didn't remove all the glue from like the binding operation. And when you go to apply a top coat or a clear coat over that, it shows up as a lighter area because the finish isn't penetrating into the wood and wetting it out and darkening it. So it shows up as a lighter spot. So as I said, or as I showed you, we did some touch-ups with that using the Mohawk Blendall pigments. I also did a little bit of touch-up around the rosette. There was a little bit of tear out from installing the sound hold binding. And other than that, it went really well. I then sealed it with 2 wash coats of thinned, highly thinned Ilva. That was thinned about 30%, maybe a little bit more. And I applied 2 coats of that, let it dry, and then I scuff sanded it, and then I used that maroon multiflex that I showed you on it and kind of went at it pretty good. It looked really good. So what I did yesterday was I applied 4 very lightly thin coats of Ilva polyurethane. And when I say lightly thinned, I just mixed it in the normal 1-to-1 resin hardener schedule, and then I thinned it about 10% with their thinner. Now, your packaging from StuMac may look a little bit different than this, but it is the resin is called the TP60 Clear Wet Gloss Poly. The thinner is the TZ13 thinner, and the hardener is the TX75. Now, I go through a lot of this stuff, so I usually buy it in larger amounts. It saves me a little bit on shipping and other things. So what I did was I mixed that up in my, and I used the PPS system, which is this system here. It's a hard outer cup, and you have a collapsible inner liner with a lid, and it just makes cleanup a lot easier. But I mixed it 1-to-1, so it was like 100. Well, it was like, well, I used weight, so it was 100 grams of resin, 100 grams of hardener, and I only put about 10 grams or so, or 15 grams of thinner in it. I didn't put a lot of thinner in it because I want to really build at this point. And what I did was I put it in my spray gun, and I sprayed a full wet coat every 40 minutes. Now, it's really nice weather right now. It's getting into fall, and I want you to look at something. One of the most important tools I have in my booth is this, which is just a very inexpensive humidity and temperature control. 37% humidity, 75 degrees Fahrenheit. It's just about ideal for finishing. Anyways, what I did was I applied 4 wet coats of the Ilva polyurethane to the body. And you can see it's built pretty nicely. There's a little bit of texture in there from that last final coat. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with it. I took care of all the touch-ups. The touch-ups along this area here were those glue spots. And the other thing that I did before I sprayed was I filled these low spots with Glue Boost. Now, I just want to mention one thing about Glue Boost. If you have to do a lot of work with Glue Boost, meaning you have to really seal or fill some punky areas like in this spalted maple, or I also had this part of the rosette, the spalted maple, was really kind of porous and punky. So I wound up having to use a lot of Glue Boost. It's best that you use that Glue Boost if you're using a lot of it, really before you start applying the heavy top coats or the build base coats. You really want to bury that Glue Boost in. If you do that towards the end of the finishing process, it is possible that on a rosette or something like that, you may get some sort of a hazy look after you buff it out with some of the residual solvents that are in that glue boost coming to the surface. I won't say it happens every time, but it's just a precaution that I take. These little binding gaps, I think that, I'll just try and show it out. I'll point it with my finger, like that binding gap there. I'm gonna use Glue Boost now to take care of that. But what I'm basically gonna do at this point is I'm gonna flat sand this. And by flat sand, what we mean is that we're gonna take 320 grit sandpaper and a hard backing block, and we're going to sand that top coat or that Ilva until there's no texture left on that body. And by texture, what I mean by that, it's like open grain or grain of the spruce, or even maybe some of the texture of the rosette. I'll also, as I'm sanding, I will be able to see some of these binding gaps appear because the sanding dust will get in there and make it really easy to see. So at this point, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over to the downdraft table and I'm gonna flat sand the body and the neck with 320 grit sandpaper, and then we'll bring it back into the spray booth for the final coats of Ilva urethane and show you what it looks like before you go to the final coats. So stay tuned. Oh, one thing, and this is just a tip. What I do when I use the urethane is that I take any leftover or stuff that I haven't used and I save it. And the reason I save it is that overnight I want to make sure that that's gelled up nicely or has turned into a semi-solid. That way I know that I mixed it correctly and that I'm not going to, suffer from an incorrect mixing or whatever. Now, if overnight, assuming that the temperature is fairly close to room temperature, not really cold, this should not still be a liquid. If it is, well, you may want to wait another day or put that in a hot room and make sure that that gels or something like that, because that means that it was mixed correctly. The reason I do that is because, this happened to a friend of mine. Obviously, they didn't mix it correctly, and they came in the next day. This was still a liquid. They went over to try and sand the guitar to flat sand it, and basically the sandpaper just stuck to the finish. So as I said, that never happened to me, but it did happen to a good friend of mine. So I'm just passing that along, that tip, to you. Anyways, that's about it for today. Let's get over to the downdraft table, do some sanding, and next time you see me, we'll look at this guitar body and evaluate it and show you where we are. Over and out.